Billy stared at the photo, his mom. Her smile was gone, just like she was. Gone. The house was silent, empty. Billy wandered the halls, a ghost in his own home. Every room held her memory, her laughter, her scent. But she was gone. Before she disappeared, Billy's life was filled with joy. They played in the garden, baked cookies, and read bedtime stories together. His mom was his world, his source of happiness. But now, all that was left was a void, a deep, aching void. Billy's heart was heavy with sorrow. He missed her every single day. He drew pictures of her, wrote letters to her, and filled his diary with memories of her. Despite the pain, Billy held on to hope. He believed that one day, she would come back. Every night he whispered to the stars, clutching the locket she gave him, hoping for a miracle. And in the quiet of the night, a glimmer of hope would shine in his eyes. One night Billy heard it, a whisper, his name soft and low, like his mom used to say it. He brushed it off, just the wind. But the whispers continued, each night, louder. The house felt different too, colder. A chill ran down Billy's spine. Something wasn't right. He tried to ignore it, but the whispers grew persistent. They seemed to be calling him, urging him to listen. He strained to understand the words, but they were just out of reach. Each night he would lie awake, heart pounding, waiting for the whispers to start. He began to notice patterns, familiar phrases almost like a message. Desperate to understand, he wrote down everything he heard. The whispers seemed to be guiding him, but to what, he didn't know. He felt a strange connection, as if the whispers were a part of him. The nights grew longer, the whispers more insistent. He knew he had to find out what they wanted, but fear held him back. The whispers were no longer just sounds, they were a call to action, and Billy knew he had to answer. Then one night he saw her, standing in the doorway, his mother, but different. Her skin was pale, almost gray. It was as if the life had been drained from her, leaving behind a ghostly visage that was both familiar and foreign. Her eyes were hollow, empty. They seemed to pierce through the darkness, yet they held no warmth, no recognition. It was like staring into an abyss. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The smile was unsettling, a mere shadow of the warmth he once knew. It sent chills down his spine. "Billy," she rasped, her voice a dry whisper. "I'm back." The words hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. Billy's heart raced. He reached out towards her, his hand trembling. "Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible. For a moment hope flickered in his eyes. Could it really be her? Had she truly come back? She stepped closer, her movements slow and deliberate. Each step seemed to echo in the silence of the night. But as she drew nearer, the hope in Billy's eyes began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of dread. The moonlight illuminated her face, revealing the full extent of her transformation. She was not the mother he remembered. Billy took a step back, his instincts screaming at him to run, but his feet felt rooted to the spot. She reached out to him, her hand pale and cold. "Billy," she whispered again, her voice sending shivers down his spine. He was torn between the fear that gripped his heart and the longing to be with his mother once more. Her face was now inches from his, and he could see every detail of her transformation. The once vibrant woman was now a haunting specter. Billy pulled his hand back, the reality of the situation crashing down on him. This was not his mother, not anymore. As if sensing his realization, she began to fade back into the darkness, her form becoming one with the shadows. Billy stood there, alone in the dark, his heart heavy with the weight of what he had just witnessed. The night was silent once more. Terror froze Billy in place. This wasn't his mother. This was something else, something horrifying. He backed away, fear gripping his heart. He could feel the cold sweat trickling down his back as he tried to comprehend the entity before him. He wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't move. It was as if the ground beneath him had turned to quicksand, trapping him in place. "Don't be afraid, Billy," she whispered, taking a step closer. Her voice was a chilling echo of his mother's, but twisted and wrong. Her touch sent a shiver down his spine. It was like ice, seeping into his bones and freezing him from the inside out. It was cold, lifeless, Mommy's home. The words echoed in his mind, each repetition more haunting than the last. Billy tried to scream, but no sound came out. His throat felt tight, constricted by an invisible force. Desperately, he looked around for an escape, but the forest seemed to close in on him, the trees forming an impenetrable barrier. He tried to lift his feet, but they felt like lead. Every muscle in his body screamed for him to run, but he was rooted to the spot. The entity reached out to him, her hand extending slowly, deliberately, as if savoring his terror. Billy squeezed his eyes shut, hoping that when he opened them, the nightmare would be over. Slowly he opened his eyes, peeking through his fingers. The entity was still there, closer than before. Her face was inches from his, her cold breath chilling his skin. The sinister smile never wavered. She touched his face and he flinched. The coldness of her touch was unbearable, like the touch of death itself. His eyes widened with terror, his face contorted in fear. He knew he had to escape, but how? Summoning every ounce of courage, Billy steeled himself. He had to find a way out, no matter what. He took a deep breath, preparing to move. This was his chance. He couldn't let fear paralyze him any longer. With a surge of determination, he took a step forward. He was ready to fight for his freedom. He started to run, dodging trees and sprinting away from the entity. He could hear her voice calling after him, but he didn't look back. Fear and determination mixed in his eyes as he glanced back. He had to keep going. He had to escape. Ahead, he saw a clearing, a glimmer of hope. He pushed himself harder, running towards the light. Bursting into the clearing, he collapsed, gasping for breath. He looked back, but the entity was nowhere to be seen. Relief washed over him, mixed with exhaustion. He had escaped, but the memory of the encounter would haunt him forever. Billy's nights were no longer his own. Each evening, as darkness fell, the entity returned, more aggressive and relentless. His once peaceful slumber was now a battlefield of terror. He would wake up drenched in sweat, the chilling whispers still echoing in his ears. His screams for help were swallowed by the silence of the night. The entity's presence was no longer confined to the shadows. It began to invade his waking hours, blurring the lines between reality and nightmare. Billy's grip on sanity started to slip. He would see fleeting glimpses of the entity in mirrors, reflections in windows, and even in the faces of strangers. The world around him twisted into a nightmarish version of itself, and Billy felt trapped in a never-ending horror. Desperation clawed at Billy's mind. He sought solace in friends and family, hoping they would believe his harrowing tales, but each plea for help was met with skepticism and disbelief. They thought he was losing his mind, chalking it up to stress or an overactive imagination. The isolation deepened his despair, and the entity fed off his growing fear. With each passing night, the entity grew stronger, its influence seeping into every corner of Billy's life. His once vibrant eyes were now haunted and hollow, dark circles etched beneath them. He could feel the entity's cold breath on the back of his neck, its malevolent presence a constant reminder of his helplessness. Billy's fear turned into desperation. He knew he had to find a way to banish the entity before it consumed him entirely. He delved into ancient texts, seeking any knowledge that could help him understand and defeat the sinister force. He visited mediums and spiritual healers, grasping at any thread of hope. But the entity was always one step ahead, thwarting his every effort. His nights became a blur of frantic research and restless sleep. The entity's taunts grew louder, its whispers more insidious. Billy's mind was a battleground, and his resolve was weakening. He felt like a prisoner in his own home, the walls closing in on him. There was no escape, no relief from the relentless torment. As the days turned into weeks, Billy's desperation reached a fever pitch. He knew he was running out of time. The entity's grip on him tightened, and he could feel his sanity slipping away. He had to find a way to end this nightmare, to reclaim his life from the clutches of the malevolent force. But with each passing moment, the odds seemed increasingly insurmountable. Billy stood at the edge of his sanity, teetering on the brink of madness. He knew that if he didn't find a way to defeat the entity soon, it would consume him completely. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the battle ahead. He was determined to fight, even if it was a fight to the death. The entity had underestimated his will to survive, and Billy was ready to prove it wrong. Desperate for answers, Billy delves into his mother's past. He discovers a dark secret that might explain the entity's presence. He finds old letters, diaries, and photographs that reveal his mother's connection to the supernatural. The more he uncovers, the more dangerous the entity becomes. Billy's hands tremble as he opens his mother's old wooden chest, the hinges creaking ominously. Inside, he discovers a collection of yellowed letters, worn diaries, and faded photographs. Each item holds a piece of the puzzle, a fragment of a past shrouded in mystery and darkness. He reads through the letters, his eyes widening with each revelation. His mother had been part of a secret society, one that dabbled in the occult and the supernatural. The diaries reveal her struggles, her fears, and her ultimate decision to leave the society, hoping to protect her family from the malevolent forces she had once summoned. As Billy delves deeper, the entity's presence grows more oppressive. The air around him thickens with malevolence, and the shadows seem to pulse with a life of their own. He can feel the entity's rage, its desperation to keep its secrets hidden. Photographs reveal chilling images of rituals and gatherings, faces obscured by hoods and masks. In one, his mother stands at the center, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. Billy's heart aches with a newfound understanding of her sacrifices and the burdens she carried. But understanding alone is not enough. The entity's attacks become more ferocious, its whispers more insidious. It knows that Billy is close to uncovering the truth, and it will stop at nothing to prevent him from succeeding. Billy realizes that the key to defeating the entity lies in his mother's past. He must confront the darkness she once faced and find a way to banish the malevolent force that has haunted his family for generations. Armed with newfound knowledge and a determination fueled by love and desperation, Billy prepares for the final confrontation. The battle ahead will be fierce, but Billy is no longer alone. He carries with him the strength and courage of his mother, and he is ready to face the entity head-on. The hidden truth has been revealed, and with it, the hope for a way out of the nightmare that has consumed his life. Billy decides to confront the entity. He prepares himself with knowledge and tools to fight back. The final confrontation is intense and horrifying. Billy faces his deepest fears and tries to banish the entity once and for all. In the dimly lit basement, Billy stands surrounded by the relics of his mother's past. The air is thick with tension, every shadow a potential threat. He has armed himself with the knowledge from the diaries and letters, along with ancient symbols and protective charms. Each item is a weapon against the darkness. The entity manifests, its form a swirling mass of shadows and malevolent energy. Its eyes burn with an otherworldly light, and its whispers fill the room with a cacophony of dread. Billy's heart pounds in his chest, but he stands his ground, determined to end this once and for all. With a steady hand, he draws a protective circle around himself, chanting the incantations he had meticulously memorized. The entity lunges, but it is repelled by the barrier. Its rage intensifies, the room shaking with its fury. Billy's voice wavers, but he continues the ritual, pouring every ounce of his will into the words. The entity's attacks become more frantic, more desperate. It knows that its time is running out. Billy feels the strain, his body trembling under the pressure, but he presses on, driven by the memory of his mother's sacrifices and the desire to protect his family. Finally, with a resounding shout, Billy completes the incantation. A blinding light erupts from the circle, engulfing the entity. It screams, a sound that reverberates through the very fabric of reality. The shadows writhe and dissipate, leaving behind a stillness that feels almost surreal. Billy collapses to his knees, exhausted but victorious. The entity is gone, banished back to the darkness from whence it came. The nightmare is over, and the house is finally at peace. As he sits in the quiet, Billy feels a sense of closure and relief. His mother's spirit can finally rest, and he can begin to heal. The battle was fierce, but Billy's courage and determination have prevailed. The hidden truth has set him free, and the legacy of darkness that haunted his family has been vanquished. For the first time in a long time, Billy feels a glimmer of hope for the future. The screen fades to black, the music swelling one last time before fading into silence. The entity is gone, but Billy is left with the scars of his ordeal. He tries to rebuild his life, but the memories haunt him. Every creak of the old house, every shadow that flickers in the corner of his eye, brings back the terror he faced. Billy spends his days restoring the house, piece by piece, as if mending it could somehow mend his own fractured spirit. The walls that once echoed with whispers of dread now seem to hum with a quiet peace. In the attic, Billy discovers an old photo album. As he flips through the pages, he sees images of his mother, smiling, happy, alive. He finds solace in knowing that her spirit is finally at peace, freed from the torment that plagued her. But even as he closes the album, a lingering question gnaws at him. Was it all real? The shadows, the whispers, the entity, were they manifestations of a haunted mind, or did he truly confront the darkness that lurked within his family's legacy? Billy's life continues, marked by moments of doubt and clarity. He finds strength in the knowledge that he faced his fears and emerged victorious. Yet the line between reality and nightmare remains blurred, a constant reminder of the ordeal he endured. As the days turn into weeks and weeks into months, Billy begins to heal. The house, once a prison of shadows, becomes a sanctuary of light. He knows the scars will never fully fade, but they serve as a testament to his courage and resilience. The story ends with Billy standing at the window, looking out at the world with a sense of quiet determination. the screen fades to black, leaving viewers with a haunting, reflective melody and the lingering question of what is real and what is imagined. The nightmare may be over, but the echoes of the past will always remain. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more.